Alright, good day everyone. Welcome again to biology class with Mr. Francis. And today we'll be looking at a very interesting topic. And today's topic is the male and the female reproductive system or structure, as you can see from the page. The male and the female reproductive structure. Alright, and today the objectives we're going to look at is that by the end of this video, every learner should be able to, number one, define reproduction and state the types. Number two, describe the functions or describe the structure and functions of the reproductive system for both male and female. Number three, describe and define the structure of the sex gametes, which is the sperm for the male and ovum for the female. And number four is to state the difference between the male and the female reproductive organs. So these are what we're going to look in this lesson for today. And if you're ready, let's go to the next slide. All right. What is reproduction? Now, as you all know already, every living organism must reproduce. They must give birth to their own kind. And reproduction can be defined as the ability of living organism to give rise to new individuals of the same species or kind. So reproduction can be defined as the ability of living organisms, whether unicellular, multicellular, either animals or plants, to give rise or to bring forth new individuals of the same species or kind. You can simply put that reproduction is the ability of an organism to reproduce its own kind. All right. Now let's look at types of reproduction. Now reproduction is divided into two types, and the first one we have is the asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction. Now this is the production of new individuals from an organism, that is from one organism, without fertilization of gametes in any form. So this is the production of new individual from a single parent or from an organism, just one organism, without the fertilization of gametes. So since they don't fertilize their gametes, they don't have the word gametes will be discussed it further in the lesson. Now what this individual do is that this particular one organism, if he wants to reproduce himself, what it does is that it splits itself. A single parent splits itself into two, and so on and so forth. And this is how they reproduce. So they don't actually need another parent, like two parents coming together. This is just a single parent splitting itself or cloning itself. We call it cloning itself into two or three daughter cells to produce after its own kind. So they reproduce by cloning themselves. All right, that is for asexual reproduction, and it usually involves only one parent, just one parent, which is an organism. Usually involve only one parent. While sexual reproduction is the other way around. This is the fusion of the male and the female sex gametes. And the sex gametes can also be called sex cell. The sex cell are responsible for the reproduction of new organism or new individual. For the male, sex cell or sex gamete is called the sperm. For the female, it's called the egg. All right, or the egg cell. So these two sex cells fuse together, as in they come together through a process called fertilization to form a zygote. And this zygote, which is the fertilized egg and the sperm, later develops into a young offspring or a new individual. So this is the two um, types of reproduction we have. Let's move on to the next slide. Now we have what is reproductive system. We've talked about reproduction. Now, what is reproductive system? Now, this is a system that has to do with the collection of organisms, the collection of organs and structures in males and females that function in gamete formation, hormone reproduction, and reproduction itself. The reproductive system is defined as the collection of organs performing the same function, all right? Collection of organs or structures in males and females that function in number one, gamete formation, hormone production, and reproduction. So all the organs in the male, all the organs in the female that work together to function in gamete formation, which is the sex cell, hormone production. These are chemicals that helps in reproduction and helps in sexual secondary character and reproduction itself. So those organs that come together to enable the organism to reproduce, they are called reproductive system. All right. And this reproductive system can be divided into two. Can be divided into the male reproductive system and the female reproductive system. All right. So let's move on to the next slide.
The male reproductive system includes the penis, the testes and epididymides held within the scrotum, the vas deferens, and internally, the seminal vesicles and the prostate gland. The penis is the male sex organ. It is made up of the shaft and the head. The head of the penis is covered by a movable piece of skin called the foreskin. The urethra is a tube that runs from the bladder through the prostate gland and the middle of the penis to carry urine out of the body. The penis has a rich blood supply as well as a muscle layer and nerves. When sexually aroused, the blood flow increases and it becomes erect. The testes produce sperm and the hormone testosterone. At the back of each testis is the epididymis, a tube where sperm is stored. When the penis is erect, sperm moves from the epididymis and through the vas deferens to the urethra. The seminal vesicles make a fluid that mixes with sperm in the urethra. The prostate gland is about the size of a walnut. It surrounds the first part of the urethra and adds more fluid to the sperm. During orgasm, the prostate squeezes this fluid into the urethra and out of the body.
Now, from these diagrams, you can see this is the structure of the male reproductive system. This one is a side view, and this is the front view of the male reproductive system. As you can see from diagram being labeled, so you can see from side diagram, this is we have our bladder right here. So our bladder right here. We have the urethra. Urethra is the tubule from the bladder in that is coming out of the penis. Like the penis himself. We have the testis. Now the sac that is wrapping the testis is called scrotum. Alright. And this tube that is right here, is called the vas deferens. Then behind it we have the prostate gland. Then we have the seminal vessel, the tube. And this is our rectum. That has to do with your excretory system. And we have the urethra. Urethra is running down from this is the urethra. It's running down from the kidney. So it's running down from the kidney to the bladder where we pass out our waste. So that's the side view. So you can see it from here also. This is the urethra or the urinary bladder, sorry, where urine is being stored before it is discharged out of the body. Here's our prostate gland, as you can see. Um, Here is the seminal vessel, as you can see. Here is the urethra. The urethra runs all the way from the bladder down through the penis and out. Here is the epididymis. Epididymis is responsible for sperm production, which you're going to see. Here is your texis, and this structure that is here is called, this one that is here is called your penis. All right. So all this are what we're going to look at. So we're going to look at the function of all this. All right, in the next slide. And let's look at the function of the texis. Now we've seen the structure. Let's look at the function. Now the texis. Now since if it is one, we call it TES. That's just one, but since we have two, so the plural for it is called texis. So all male mammals have two oval-shaped texis, and it's found inside, and it's found in the what scrotal sac. This is scrotal sac that we have right here. This sac that is here, this sac, what is wrapping the texis, this sac, that's the scrotal sac. So you can see from this diagram. So this is the texis. This is the structure of the texis. So they are inside the scrotal sac, outside the body. And the reason why they're outside the body is to enjoy cooler temperature to enhance the sperm production. And the sperm, they are living organism, which is the sex cell of the male. There's a particular temperature which it needs. So the body temperature is not suitable for the production of the sperm. So it requires a cooler temperature. That's why the testis inside the scrotum is outside the body, hanging outside the body, all for the purpose of getting a cooler temperature for the production of what? Of a sperm. What is the function of this? Is that the function is that number one, production of sperm, the site of production of sperm. Number two, production of male sex hormones, which is the text. Is first at the what? Secondary sex character, and this is caused by the testosterone. Alright, so that is the function of the testis. Let's look at another structure again. Next one we have is the seminiferous tubulus. Now, the seminiferous tubulus is found within the testis, alright, and is composed of mass of sperm producing tubes. As you can see, it's right here. It's composed of what? Mass of sperm producing tubes. And the function is also a site for what? Sperm production. So this is where the sperm is being produced, all right, in the seminiferous tubule, all right. So the seminiferous tubule is responsible for the sperm. Let me see if I can get it in this particular. See, it's okay. Yeah, so it's right here. See, actually that first one was not it. This is it right here. So this is the seminiferous tubule right here. This is seminiferous tubule on this region here. Let me use another color of pen. So that's the seminiferous tubule, as you can see. They are inside the testis. So this is where the sperm is being produced. All right, that's where the sperm is being produced inside the what? Testis. And take note, the testis is outside the body, wrapped in a scrotal sac. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. Now we have what we call the epididymis. So the epididymis is found outside the testis as a long tube, a long coil tube. So it's on the testis, just inside. So if the scrotal sac is being peeled off, we'll see this curve. This is the body of the epididymis. It's on the testis, all right. And what is the function? When the sperm is being produced by the seminiferous tubule inside the testis, this particular structure collect and store the sperm temporarily until they mature. So once the sperm is being produced in the testis, which is right here, once it produced in the testis right here, so what happens next is that the epididymis stores the sperm temporarily until they mature. That's the function of the what? Epididymis. Let's look at the next one we have. We have the vas deferens. Vas deferens, or you call it what? Sperm ducts. The sperm ducts or the vas deferens, they are called the same. So you either call it vas deferens or you call it the sperm duct. Now it's a narrow tube which leads from the epididymis to the seminal vessel, as you can see it here. So it's connected. Look at it here. It's going out. So it leads from the epididymis to the what? Seminal vessel. Now, what is the function of this pipe that is here? That is attached to the epididymis? It's a conduction of sperm from the epididymis to the what? Seminal vessel. So remember that once the sperm is being produced in testis, it is stored in the epididymis, and this vas deferens or sperm duct is like a pipe. All right, it carries the sperm to a place called seminal vessel. A place called seminal vessel. So this is how it functions. So the sperm is produced in testis, stored temporarily in the epididymis until they are matured. Once they are matured, it's sent through this pipe to go and store it in the seminal vessel. You conduct it there to the seminal vessel. Let's move on to the next one. And this is the seminal vessel. Now, seminal vessel is a small sac where sperm are stored. Mature sperm are stored. Take note, this is the seminal vessel here. That's the seminal vessel where sperm are stored. Okay, they are actually stored there once they are matured. So it's stored in the seminal vessel. Now, this is a small sac where sperm are stored. It is located to the posterior end of the vas deferens. So it's at the front of the vas deferens. Okay, the vas deferens, I told you, it's a cord. So, or you call it the sperm duct. So it's at the front of it. So once the sperm is produced in testis, sent to the epididymis, epididymis will transfer it down to the seminal vessel where it is actually stored. Okay, and let's look at the function. It stores sperms till ejaculation. So the sperm have been stored there until they are ejaculated. Ejaculated simply means until they are released out of the body during sexual intercourse or during fertilization. Then also it secretes part of seminal fluid. So the fluid in which the sperm flows in, the liquid in which the sperm flows in is called seminal what? Fluid. And take note, the seminal fluid contains fructose, which provides energy for the sperm. Now, the seminal fluid contains a particular kind of carbohydrate, a particular kind of sugar. Okay, a particular kind of carbohydrate. I think this is a polysaccharide. This thing. So it contains this particular sugar. All right, which provides energy for the sperm. So the sperm actually need a lot of energy to perform, to be able to swim into the egg to fertilize the egg. So it actually needs a lot of energy. So one of the functions of the seminal vessel is that it provides seminal fluid which contains fructose, which the sperm requires as an energy to be able to, all right, swim to fertilize the egg. All right, so let's move on to the next one. Number 6, we have what we call the prostate gland. Now, the prostate gland, it is connected to the urethra through many tubules. It's connected to the urethra through many what? Tubules. Now, this is the prostate gland here. So you can see it here. Let me make it that one very clear. So you can see this is the prostate gland. That's the prostate gland. All right. Now, the function is that it secretes part of the seminal fluid which activates the sperm. All right. It's also helps to secrete seminal fluid. Don't forget that seminal fluid is also released by the last structure we just talked about, which is the seminal vessel. It also secretes part of the seminal fluid which activates the sperm, all right, to perform its action. So that is the prostate gland. Let's look at next structure we have here. We have the carpal gland, and the carpal gland is located close to the prostate gland. Close to the prostate gland, very located to this is close to the prostate gland here, very tiny, it's tiny thing here, close to the prostate gland. Now, what is the function? Now, it secretes parts of the seminal fluid which raises the acidic pH of the female reproductive medium, which otherwise can kill the sperm. So what it means here is that the seminal fluid which is being released together with the sperm, once it's being introduced into the vagina of the female, when the sperm is being introduced into the vagina of the female, right, it has a way of raising the acidic pH of the female reproductive system in order not to so that it will not destroy all the sperm cell. All right, so that it not destroy the sperm cell. So it's a kind of a protection for the sperm. All right, it's a kind of protection for the sperm, so that the sperm can able to fertilize the egg. All right, let's move on to the next one. We have the urethra. Now, the urethra is a narrow tube, a very narrow tube, which passes through the penis. As you can see, this is the urethra. All right, it's a tube that passes through the what? Through the penis. What is the function of the urethra? Now, it aids the passage of sperm into the vagina of the female animal, and also passage of urine out of the body. So we can call it the urinogenital opening. So that opening at the penis where the urine passes out, or where the sperm passes out, is referred to as the what? Urethra. So it's referred to as the urethra, and you can also call it what? Urinogenital opening. Urinogenital opening. All right. So it opens from the inside of the body out through the penis out of the body for urination and for release of what? Of sperm. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Now we have the penis himself. So we have the penis itself. So the penis right here. You can see the penis right here. Now it connects. This contains tissue which makes it to be turgid or erect when filled with blood. And the penis does not have a bone. It's just made up of some body of tissues. Now this tissue only when it is filled with blood, maybe when it is aroused during sexual intercourse, or when it is aroused during sexual intercourse, it is filled with blood. So as soon as blood is pumping into this, the penis will now become erect. To erect, okay, it will stand erect or become turgid when it is filled with blood. And what is the function of the penis? It helps to introduce the sperm into the vagina of the female animal, and also it is a passage of urine. So it helps to introduce the sperm into the vagina. So the sperm will pass through the urethra. Once the penis inside the vagina, it is passing through the urethra. All right, and the sperm is released into the vagina, and also it is a passage for urine. That is the function of the penis. The next structure we'll look at is the female reproductive structure or system. Let's look at the female reproductive system, as you can see from the picture.
The female reproductive system includes a number of parts. The ovaries hold the eggs, which are released each month during childbearing age. They also produce sex hormones, which control periods. The fallopian tubes connect the ovaries to the womb, also called the uterus. When an egg is released, it travels down the fallopian tube towards the womb. At this time, sperm from the male can pass into the fallopian tube, where it may meet the egg and fertilize it. Fertilized eggs pass down the fallopian tube to the womb, which holds and protects the baby during pregnancy. The lining of the womb is called the endometrium. It thickens during the menstrual cycle, ready for pregnancy. If you don't become pregnant, you have a period, which is when the lining sheds. The cervix is the lower part of the womb. It is the opening into the vagina. During a period or menstruation, blood passes from the womb through the cervix and then to the vagina. The vagina also opens and expands during sexual intercourse and stretches during childbirth to allow a baby to come out. On the outside of the body is the vulva. It is made up of 2 pairs of lips. Between these is the opening of the vagina. Above the vagina is the urethra, the short tube that carries urine from the bladder to outside the body. And above the urethra is the clitoris, a very sensitive area that gives sexual pleasure. For more information about cancers that
Let's look at the first structure we are talking about here. Let's look at the ovaries. Now, the ovaries, all right, it is found on each side of the vertebral column, and it's usually two in every woman. Just the way you have a texas for the female, it is the ovaries that we have. That's the difference between them. For the male, it's the texas. For the female, is the what ovary, and we have two in every woman, right? In the vertebral column, just around the waist or around the hip region. Now, what's the function of the ovaries? Number one, it is a site for production of eggs or ova. It also produces the female sex hormone known as estrogen and progesterone. So it's producing the female sex hormone called estrogen and progesterone. For the male, it's different. For the male, is the testosterone. All right, testosterone. While for the female is the estrogen and the progesterone. Now, these hormones are responsible for the development of secondary sexual character in female. So when females are going to the puberty stage, for example, the changes like the widening of the hip, hair in the pubic region, breast enlargement, development of the breast, and others. Those are secondary sexual characters. This all happens due to these hormones that is being released, and its hormone is produced in the ovary. So once the hormones are being produced, the female the female child begins to show all those developments in her body, like hip enlargement, um, signs of growth of breast, um, growth of hair in the pubic region, and releasing of eggs. Those are secondary sexual characters being caused as a result of the production of the what of these hormones. All right, let's move on to the next one. We have the oviduct. And the oviduct for the female can be also be called fallopian tube. And the oviduct um is looks like the sperm duct, which is the vas deferens. Those are the two. There are differences. For the male, it's called vas deferens or sperm duct. For the female, it's called oviduct, or you call it the fallopian tube. Now, it's a long, narrow tube funnel opening which receives egg released by the ovary, and it is a linkage between the ovary and the ureter. So it is a long, narrow tube funnel opening which receives um, eggs released by the ovary, and it's a linkage between the ovary and the sperm. So here it is. This is the fallopian tube. All right. So it's a long tube. So this is the fallopian tube that receives the egg. Once the egg is produced here, it receives the what? The egg. All right. So once the egg is produced here in the ovary, these are the ovaries. Once the egg is produced, so it receives the eggs move through this tube. All right. And it's a linkage between this is the ureterus and this is the ovary. So the the connection between this part and this part, this part and this part is the what? Fallopian tube. All right. Is the fallopian tube. So what is the function of this? And the function of this is that okay, the word fertilization takes place in the oviduct. Fertilization takes place where? In the what? Oviduct. This is where fertilization takes place, in the oviduct, in the fallopian tube. All right. It takes place in the fallopian tube. And number two, it allows the passage of egg from the ovary to the ureter. It allows the passage of egg from the ovary to the ureters. That is the function of the fallopian tube. Let's move on to the next slide. Now, the next one we're looking at is the uterus. The uterus. Now, the uterus is a muscular organ, which is a cavity for development of zygotes into baby. So it's a muscular organ, which is a cavity just like a hole, all right, for development of the zygotes. When the egg is being fertilized by the sperm, and the fertilized egg is planted inside the uterus. All right, and the fertilized egg, I said there is the embryo. From there to lead to the zygote, which will not develop into a baby. And here, right here, I'm circling is the uterus. This is where the egg is being planted. We can call the uterus womb. Some people call it womb. We can call it womb, or we call it what? Uterus. Now it's a sac, it's a kind of a whole sac, it's a kind of a cavity here, like a sac that houses, all right, it's a hole here that houses the fertilized egg, all right, houses the fertilized egg for the baby, all right. So once the egg is fertilized, it plants itself inside here and it begins to germinate into a baby. So you can call it uterus, you can call this womb, all right. You can call it womb, it's called womb, all right. So, or you call it what? Uterus. What is the function of this particular um what is the function of this? And the function of this is that it is a site of embryo development. So the embryo, which is the fertilized egg, will develop into the zygote, and the zygote become a newborn baby. So the fertilized egg is the embryo. So it's a site of embryo development from implantation till birth. So the fertilized egg will be here and begin to develop, passes through different stages until birth. All right. So take notes. So the uterus houses the fertilized egg. Let's go on to the next slide. Now we have the vagina. Now the vagina is a muscular tube leading from the uterus to the outside of the body. Don't forget that this is the uterus here. Now this is the vagina. This is the vagina, and this is leading outside the body. This is the vagina. So it's a muscular tube, okay, leading from the uterus outside of the body. What is the function of the vagina? It receives the sperm from the penis during sexual intercourse. So once the animals are having sexual intercourse, so once this is where the penis is being placed in, and the vagina here, this penis is being placed in. When the penis is placed in here, the sperm are being released. All right. So the vagina receives the penis and the sperm, and allows, number two, it allows the passage of fetus during birth. So once the sperm is being released, flows to and get fertilized and get the egg, the fertilized egg get planted here. Once it's planted here, all right, and it's time for birth, the fetus or the baby passes through here out of the body also. So it performs two functions: receives sperm from the penis during sexual intercourse and allows the passage of the fetus during birth. This is when the baby passes this out. So it has the ability to stretch. Okay, it can stretch for the baby to pass out during birth. Okay, let's look at the next slide we have. We have the cervix, and the cervix is a ring of muscles with tiny opening that closes the lower end of the uterus where it is joined to the vagina. So the cervix is a ring of muscles. All right, it's a muscle, not a bone. It's a muscle rather, with tiny opening. Okay, that closes the lower end of the womb or the uterus where it joins to the vagina. So this is the cervix. It's a muscle. It's a muscle. As you can see, the the tiny opening, very tiny opening. All right, very tiny opening. You can see the tiny opening there. I see the very tiny opening right here. So this is cervix. It's a muscle. It's a ring of muscles. Okay. And what's the function? It controls the opening and closing of the vagina during childbirth, especially childbirth. So it controls what? The closing and the opening of the what? Vagina. This is the vagina right here. So it opens. All right. It opens and closes. All right. It opens and closes during childbirth. As you can see, it opens or closes during childbirth. Open and closes of the vagina during what? Childbirth. Let's move on to the next slide. Now, right here we have a vulva. Now, the vulva refers to all the external parts of the female reproductive organ. So, the external part of the female reproductive organ is called the vulva. Now, what's the function of the vulva? It allows the passage of the penis into the vagina during sexual intercourse. Then it also permits the passage of fetus during birth. So it allows the passage of the penis during sexual intercourse and also permits the passage of fetus. Take note, fetus is a developed baby, a developed embryo. okay, developed baby that is ready to be delivered during birth. So this is the vulva, all the external parts of the female. This is the vulva, all right. So the main function is to allow passage of the penis during sexual intercourse, and number two, to allow the birth of fetus. Let's move on to the next slide. Here we have the clitoris. Now the clitoris is a small sensitive organ, all right, which correspond to the male penis, just like the male penis, all right, but it's not as big as the male penis, just like a finger like. So it becomes stiff and become erectile when stimulated due to blood inflow. Just as the male penis erects and becomes turgid when it is aroused, maybe during sexual intercourse, and it becomes turgid and becomes erect. Same thing with the clitoris. The clitoris also works in that same manner. All right. It also erects. It also becomes stiff when it is filled with what? With blood. All right. Now, what is the function of the clitoris? It helps to stimulate the female during sexual intercourse. All right. It gives the female the sweet feeling, all right, the pleasant feeling during sexual intercourse, and they experience what we call orgasm. Now, orgasm is just like a kind of a flush of a flush or a burst of sweet sensation experienced during sexual intercourse, just similar to ejaculation. The pleasure the male get during the ejaculation, the female also has such pleasure during um, orgasm. All right, so it's a kind of a burst of pleasant feeling during sexual intercourse. And here's the clitoris right here. It's very tiny. Here's the clitoris right here, so it can be